If you have a problem, if no one else can help, and if you can find them, maybe you can hire the A-Team.
Can gritty reboots capture the nostalgia of classic 80s action shows? The 1980s were a time of influence. Action movies were driving our culture forward, and the television networks wanted to get in on the action craze. It was the start of a decade of great shows that are still popular today. Many of them made enough of an impression to get reboots, so what is it about these 80s action shows that made networks think a reboot would survive today's culture? Although they were all action shows, they were different from each other and had unique things in each of them. Crazy inventions in MacGyver, and iconic cars in Magnum and the A-Team.
Man, you what, sucker?
May I park your vehicle?
Are you crazy? Nobody drive my van but me. Get out of here. Don't touch my van, sucker. If you do, I'll come back and feed you your socks.
Another iconic part of these shows, besides the characters, was the visuals. Obviously, being in the 80s, they had 80s style. From the mullet in MacGyver to that Detroit baseball cap and mustache in Magnum, you knew you were in for a wild ride. Speaking of rides, A-Team's van was also iconic. In Klein's book, Cycles, Sequels, Spin-offs, Remakes, and Reboots, Klein talks about how reboots reconstruct not a historical past, but a glossy pastness for the present. This identification sheds light on the fact that memories of the decade, or its 1980s-ness, are themselves manufactured, a product of pop cultural media representations. In comparison, Case by Case Media wrote an article titled The Rise of the Gritty Reboot. In it, they mentioned how Gen Z, as a generalized whole, wears social justice warrior like a badge of honor. They're digital natives and some of the first people to grow up with social media, and they're coming of age in a global pandemic and an ever-growing climate crisis. Suffice it to say, they're not looking at the world through rose-colored glasses. Thus, in a dramatic generalization split, the doomer is born. Arguably a demographic that revels in, you guessed it, gritty reboots. The originals all felt unique and different, but the new ones all just feel like every other show that's being run today. The reboots have continuous storylines throughout the seasons, whereas the originals had independent episodes that could be watched in any order. That was part of the joy of these older shows. You could tune in to any episode and not be out of the loop from some larger story. Shows today want you to watch every episode so that they get more views and higher ratings, and the easiest way to do this is by having crucial information teased at the end of each episode and a cliffhanger at the season finale so they can get greenlit for another season. Klein talks about one of television's most defining characteristics is episodic storytelling and open-ended narration in a series format. So why would studios choose to reboot shows with episodic formulas into series that now have continuing stories? Klein warned about how reboots are less interested in recreating the detail of their originals than in adapting the source material to the conventions and expectations of the contemporary genre movie and/or blockbuster. MacGyver changed up the character roles of several members to make the cast more diverse. They changed his boss to a female and added a female hacker to make the show relevant to technology today. And they added in the black best friend. But were these necessary? How much can you change the original before it becomes unrecognizable? Would viewers be upset if these shows weren't diverse nowadays? Perhaps. But the A-Team movie didn't change genders or races of any of its characters, and its target audience was okay with that. In Magnum P.I. Reboot, by changing Higgins to a female, the jokes were now internally monitored to not be sexist or offensive to females. If the reboot was just for males, the jokes would be much different, and so would the target audience. Another reason that the studio could have wanted to bring in a female was it would raise the stakes when they turned it into a romantic interest. So did they do it? Did these gritty reboots capture the nostalgia from the 80s originals? No. Studios tried to make these shows modern and trendy, but this made them become just like all the other action shows out there today. By changing the stories from fun, independent episodes to gritty, season-long cliffhangers, the reboots lost that nostalgic, lighthearted charm of the originals. Making them have modern technology and a diversified cast was necessary, as it would be for any show that would be made today, but that takes away from the nostalgic appeal they were after. In an article titled "Deja Vu, Is the Film Industry's Sequel and Remake Addiction a Sign of the End?" Haynes warned that sequels, reboots, and remakes in the film industry represent Hollywood's move towards imitative design over innovative design. This is because these films illustrate the natural relationship between both product development and marketing. With movie theaters being flooded with sequels, reboots, and remakes, it seems that the US movie industry is either heading towards implosion or disruption.
Sounds like a great idea.